welcome back to WTCtv Collector Series. Tony and I decided that we were going to do something a little different for this episode. We thought that we'd continue in the vein of having some of the top collectors from around the world, but today we're going to surround it around what we believe to be one of the top wrestling card series of all time, and that's the 1998-1999 Topps WCW Autograph Series. And we're going to be talking about that. But before we get into that, we're going to talk to Jamie and Frank, and we're going to sort of get into it with them about what got them into wrestling card collecting. And these two guys are two of the foremost WCW autograph collectors out there. So we don't have, we couldn't go get anybody better to talk about this stuff. And, you know, we got Jamie Wallace from Niagara Falls, New York, only 2 hours away from me. We've got Frank Psirakis from Sydney, Australia, a little bit more than 2 hours away from me.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got Tony Vela, and Tony and I have been around these cards for like 20 years. So we've got a lot of thoughts and things on that. So how you doing, brother? How was your day today?
Today's been pretty good, man. I've been really excited about getting ready to talk about this. I know it's been kind of a topic that seems to be brought up almost in every 6 months to a year type of a thing where something either crops up out of the woodworks that we never knew about, which is always exciting about this hobby. Learning new things, constantly evolving and learning stuff is so cool about this hobby. But either something like that or some controversies, and we're going to get into all that stuff today.
Cool. So let's start off with you. We got Jamie Wallace from New York. Let's talk a bit about your collecting, Jamie, and how you got into wrestling and cards in particular.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been collecting wrestling action figures for about 25 years or so. I'm 36 now. Probably even longer. But got into cards around that time as well. Stopped collecting them, continued with the action figures. Then a little bit before COVID, got back into the cards. Mainly Michael Jordan, actually. And I always say this in all of my interviews that got expensive really fast. I have since sold and rebought a bunch of them, actually. So, those cards are super cool. But in between then, I started collecting the wrestling cards. And then that was in 20. And then around spring of 21, I started collecting this auto set and completed all of 101 pack pulled plus about 5 unreleased in about 8 months.
Incredible.
So it was a lot of wheeling and dealing, a lot of trades, a lot of buying and selling, getting them from guys from like overseas and other states. It was a ton of fun, actually. And they're always
I got to ask you, Jamie. I got to ask you then. But yeah, why the WCW autograph cards? Why did you jump into that? A guy who comes from, you collected figures, but then you get into basketball, and your Jordan's been like your love. I've seen you're getting back into Jordan cards again.
Right?
Lately.
Yeah.
And then of all the things to collect, obviously a lot of guys like the Wrestling All-Stars, other guys collect some of the modern shiny stuff, but you chose WCW autograph cards. What about that appealed to you?
I've always had a soft spot for WCW. I'm not going to say I wish they won the war, but Sting is my favorite of all time. So obviously I was looking at a bunch of his stuff when I first got back in. So I would see like his auto card from this set a lot. But I didn't know the set. I just thought it was a card that, has got like his auto on it. And then I would see a few other guys that are now deceased, like Kurt Hennig, Guerrero, Elizabeth. And I'm like, oh, like, what is this set? And then I'm not sure if I went on Tony's or Paul's site first. I'm not sure. But that's where I got the entire checklist of all 3 sets. And then I was like, you know what? I think I can collect all of these. And back then, 2021 was considered the like boom, but I think these cards have not only sustained their value since 21, but actually have gone up. There's a lot of cards I got for cheaper 2 years ago that if I sold and I had to buy today are 2-3 times what they were. And it's partially my own fault. I mean, I go on, if I get something, I post it, and I tout these cards a lot. So I just think a lot of people, once they buy one, it's kind of addicting, so.
Is that what happened with you, Frank?
Yeah. Like I've been collecting wrestling cards. My first set was the 87 Topps. And then I've always collected figures like LJNs. I'm a little bit older than Jamie. I'm 45. So I had the LJNs. Then I got into the Hasbros as a teen. But then the set that got me back into cards was this WCW top set. So it was funny. I must have been buying the retail of Series 1 because I was never hitting any autographs. And I didn't even know there was autographs until my older brother was working in the city one day and there was a card shop there. And he goes, oh, there's a Disciple card here. It's autographed. So I did not even know there was autographs. So that was like, obviously late 90s, maybe early 2000s. And then I said to him, yeah, do you want it? He asked me, do I want it? I said, yes. It was like $25. I said, yeah, get it for me. So that was the catalyst. So the Disciple was my very first card. And then, yeah, I found your checklists and I've got them all here, man. All the checklists
Nice.
from everything I collect from wrestlingtradingcards.com. Yeah, and then I got into it. So what I said was, I'm just going to get the NWO guys because I love the NWO.
Everybody
so
says
I've
that.
got
I'm just gonna do
Disciple.
this.
Yeah. And then I picked up a Lenny Lane for like $2.99. Then I picked up someone else, and then before you knew it, I was collecting the whole set. And yeah, it's the best set ever.
It's
the best set ever.
addicting. It's addicting.
Yeah,
Sure.
there's just so many names, like Jamie mentioned, like ones that the people who have deceased, who are gone, like Bam Bam Bigelow, Elizabeth, Eddie Guerrero.
And both those, all three of those guys you just mentioned, all beautiful signatures too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So many.
Take their time.
Well, that's what we had. Also, that's another thing. All these old school guys, they had penmanship. Like all these new sets, they're just initials almost.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what makes this set even better. Like everyone's signature is awesome. Like, you know, apart from maybe Lodi, you know,
It's like printed
or Buff, you know. But
It's kind of like my Loomis cards. Come on, that's like same thing.
but at least Loomis does something with his autograph, you know. It actually makes it
it's
interesting.
identifiable.
Yeah.
It's identifiable.
If you take the 101 cards, you know, and I don't think there's anything else, Wrestling All-Stars included, Raw. Like once you get into grading and the fallacy of that and the people signing after the fact, then we know what can happen when that happens. But if you just take the Raw cards, you know, 8 guys out of 10 are going to pick the WCW autographs, I think.
Well, you recently just did a post and you kind of add, you know, that thing, and it seemed to be
it was
in that 60-40, 70-30 almost.
Yeah, more like 75-25. Like a lot of people pick the autographs. Now, before we get into it, let's here and now definitively decide what the number is. I'll give you guys my count, and then you'll talk about it, Jamie and Frankie, and of course Tony will sum it up. I've always gone with 111, with 2 variants on top of that. We know that there's a Horace Hogan variant and there's a Booker T variant. When I say variants, for those that don't know, the logo on the cards are different. It has the embossed, and so we have 111 plus those 2 variants. Now, some people say, well, there's a Horace Hogan signed in red and there's signed like this. I don't count the different signatures and the variations. Like we know, Jamie, there's 4 very distinct Hulk Hogan looking cards. But in my mind, there's 1 Hulk Hogan card.
Right.
So my thing for Tony and our purposes for archiving, there's 111 different wrestlers with 2 variants. Now, there's talk that there might be a Barbarian variant that we haven't seen yet, so it's not verified. And I know, Jamie, a little bit later on, you're going to go through a list of people that could have cards potentially because they were around at the time.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? Are you in agreement with the
I agree with you when you say 111. Is Mongo in there? You're counting Mongo in there.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm counting the guys that actually have cards. So we have the 101 pack.
Yeah.
Then we have the 4 ultra rare, which would be the Flair, the Bulldog, the Booker, and the Hack. And then we have the recent ones, the McMichael and Enos. And then we have those few early oddball ones like the Whipwreck, the Mysterio, the Wyndham, and I can't remember what the last one was.
Scott Steiner.
And Steiner. And that weren't in packs. And I've never seen any other in 20 years of doing this.
Right. Yeah. But I would say
a year ago I hadn't seen 2 of those.
It's the internet, you know. Go ahead, Frankie.
No, I was going to say I've only seen the 1 Ric Flair ever. Bulldog, I've seen maybe 3, but Ric Flair the only one. Have you guys seen Ric Flair more than once?
Yeah, I've only seen the Flair once, and it was in around 2010, 2011. And I still have the image. And back then we didn't have the technology to bang something off as good as that would have been to not have come off that initial print run. So I'm firmly convinced that came off the same print run. And just like we were talking off air earlier, like the 2005 Heritage, who knows what happened with the signature.
And you had said that sold in 2010 there, Paul, for about
It-
1,000, you said?
No, it's
No,
closer
about
to
No,
two.
more.
I think it was just an even $2,000, I believe.
Or a little, I bid
Yeah.
on it, you know, I bid a
That'd
lot.
be a
At the
bargain
time-
now.
And,
Yeah.
and I
Be a-
thought,
that'd be a
that
bargain
it
now.
actually, for some reason, I thought even sold earlier than that, to be honest with you.
No,
because-
I remember the time specifically because of what I was doing, and it was a big deal because we'd never seen this thing before. And my thing is it real?
Yeah,
You
'cause
know,
I
I
snapped
just
the
remember
image.
it was in bad condition. It was folded.
it
Like
was.
it was in pretty
It's
bad
not. It
condition.
wasn't mint, but it wasn't horrible. Like I'd heard of. There was talk recently about the Booker T being exposed in 2010, which isn't the case because I'd seen that card as early as 2005.
Yeah, it
And
came out earlier than that, so
yeah.
I snagged the
And
image
I'd
off
seen
of
the
it, off of
British
eBay.
Bulldog.
Yeah.
I think the actual British Bulldog card that Alex here in Toronto owns, and I've had the pleasure of holding in my hand. I was aware of the Bulldog card and the Booker T card for sure,
Yep.
long before 2010, and I'd seen them both.
Yeah.
Not in person, but out there. You know what I mean?
Because I had grabbed the original Booker T image off of eBay when it went on eBay that time. And then I also got the Ric Flair autograph image also off of the eBay listing it sold for, because at the time it became like the most expensive wrestling card ever sold. It's like that, you know, which prior to that was the Trish Stratus card that I sold.
Right.
That sold for $1,600. So I was kind of intrigued by that when I saw it. And anytime I was always surfing, you know, eBay buying cards at the time, I was grabbing every image. I had no idea what the card was, where it came from. I just grabbed it, dumped it in the folder. I'll research it later. Grab it, dump the folder, research it later. And I kept a notepad of like, oh, okay, well, I got this card from this eBay auction. And, you know, I wasn't as savvy as like, you know, screen capturing things like that. I just could screen capture just the right mouse click, save image as kind of thing. When I probably should have been screen capturing the entire listing probably at the time. Yeah, I mean, that thing came out.
Well, you know what? It's good that
long
we
time
grabbed
ago.
those images because it never came around again. I did the same
Nope.
thing. I
Yep.
saved just the card, and yeah, it would have been nice to do a screen capture of the actual date and everything.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but,
I started doing screen caps when every time a Booker would pop up or something that I hadn't seen in a long time.
Smart.
So I've got a couple of screen caps of Booker T in a lot that sold here in Australia, and I so regret not buying it, but it is what it is. It's always the
we
way.
talk about that all the time. Tony, tell us about the Rey Mysterios.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually funny. Steve Temke's been hitting me up lately on message, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, Paul, for the card set. And he hit me up about wanting to know more information about how they got released, because Ray was between WCW and WWE days. He wasn't signed by WWE at the time. He was one of those guys who wrote out his contract, you know, just getting paid. And he came and did an appearance at the Frankenstein Collectibles show in City of Industry, California. And I had a booth there. And at the time, this gentleman named Ed was his quote unquote manager. I'm not even sure if that was really true, but on Ray's table, along with 8x10s, was the entire brick of all of his WCW autograph cards.
Oh, wow.
Now,
Man.
I should have just got them all, especially, you know, thinking about what I paid for them at the time, but I ended up getting 45 of those things signed. And I quickly moved them too, because I know what I paid for them and I know what I sold them for. And I made good money off those. And I did 2 are done in red ink for certain, 100%. And the rest were divided up between both black and blue ink. Probably more.
I got a blue one in that
more
first
the
phase when
blue
you put
one
them-
than the
when you
black
put them to market. I grabbed the blue one. I'm pretty sure because I've had it for a while.
Blue
Mine's
is
black.
one.
Or
Yeah,
the
mine's
ones that I
blue.
had was yeah, it was black.
So, and that's how they got out there. So I've been asked, like, you know, did you ever put them on eBay? And I'm like, yeah, I put some of them on eBay, and I can't recall at the time. I was really doing a lot of eBay stuff. I was probably having, we're talking, you know, early 2000s first off. So, one of the first people to have, you know, a group of people had eBay stores. There was myself and Grim. We were the only 2 guys really selling a lot of wrestling cards.
You remember Grim?
On
Yeah,
Right,
I remember
and-
Grim.
But not a lot of people do. That's why when you said, "Oh, Grim,"
Yeah.
you know, he's
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
name in the
I
world.
bought a few
And-
graded cards from him.
Yeah,
And
did you?
apparently, he didn't speak to a lot of people very often, but he and I would have marathon phone conversations discussing how we were going to go forward. And then, you know, we started making a deal with the whole Fleer acquisition stuff. But yeah, I don't recall how many I put. I'd say 10 to 15. I can't believe I put 20 on up on eBay at the time. 'Cause a lot of stuff was just sold at my booth at Frankenstein. So I didn't keep any for myself because I wasn't collecting them. I didn't care.
I don't recall what I paid,
Wow.
but being the cheapskate that I am, it couldn't have been too much. You know,
I'm gonna have to tell you, probably the most expensive I sold it for, maybe $100.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I
yeah.
bought mine in 21 for I think 3K.
The most I've ever spent, I have 107 of the 111, and I think Frankie, you have 107 or 108, and this guy Lionel claims to have only be missing 2 of them. But I think the most I ever spent was on the Scott Steiner, which was my last one, and I could just never get one. I think I didn't get my Steiner until like 2012, 2013, and this is like starting
Oh
into
wow, that late.
Oh yeah. Yeah, always knowing that, you know, I'll find one, I'll find one. Missed a couple, and the price got to the point where I got to pay no matter what now. And I think it was 3 something, which in 2012 was still a lot
That is a lot, yeah,
for a
for
Scott
sure.
Steiner. And Jamie and Tony obviously know this story. I was offered the hardcore hack for 150 from a guy that had a bunch of them at the time, and I let that go. Let it go twice for this guy here with Jamie. The second time around. There was $2,000 instead of 150 the second time around. I let that go as
Yep.
well. But that's why I jumped on the Enos, because I thought, you know what, the guy's got 3 or 4 in a drawer, and then they're gone. You know what I mean? And now, Frankie, that's what you're saying. You missed. If that's it, you know, because Tony and I were talking about it the other day. Is it worth $1,000? Well, Mike Enos isn't worth $1,000, but the fact that he has a card in this set that, you know, gives it
Biggest payday he ever had.
Yeah. Well, he sold a bunch of them, so he did well.
Yeah.
So Tony, theoretically, he had the whole stack there. Did he sign the whole stack?
No, he didn't. Nope.
didn't.
When I went back to try to negotiate another deal with Ed gotten wind of how much I was selling them for, so he upped his price, and I walked away. I said nope. And
Okay.
I think he was asking $100 a card at that point, because I was getting $100 a card,
Okay.
and we
Okay.
argued
Is
about
that
it. And
Tony, is that the same with Hack? Like I was told that Hack, like Sandman was signing his cards at shows and things like that as well.
could have been. I mean, most of these guys, like, it makes me want to go back and text Scott Steiner and go ask him, first off, where's my money? Secondly, you know, hey, do you have anything left over? It's like that. So
The hack that I bought, I'm sorry, Tony.
Go ahead.
It was from a kid named Tyler.
It
It
said
said
to
to Tyler actually on the card, and then an old trick I like YouTubed shoe polish, or I'm
Mhm.
sorry, polish remover or something, and I was able to get that off because it's like a shiny card. But
Yep.
anyway, he said he went to a show in 2001 and he just had them right there on his gimmick table.
It sounds familiar.
yeah.
I mean, I've done that
Yeah.
before with other cards. Like, you know, nobody knew about the Terry Reynolds SmackDown autograph card that she was on. It was, you know, called, the card was PMS, and the back of it tells you congrats. Matter of fact, I have one laying around here somewhere, but
Oh, I've got one of them.
it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
signed by her, but I got them from off air, telling you that story with Kevin, you know, at the convention. She had them at the table. Like, I'd never seen them before. I go, I like to buy some of these. So I took like 6 of them from her. It's like that. And I got rid of all of them except for one where she had written across the top. It was the TerryReynolds.net. She put across there, something like that.
Oh, okay.
But the back says, congratulations, you have a genuine autograph card from PMS. And
Yeah.
so it was
Was
supposed
that
to be
the one that the 3 of them were supposed to sign?
Yeah.
all 3 were supposed to
Yeah.
sign. So I don't know if she took control of all of them and she was supposed to then sign hers and send them over to Ryan Shamrock and then send them over to Jacqueline. I wasn't sure how that process went, but I know she had a whole bunch. She had a good stack of them with selling at her gimmick table. So it
Now,
wouldn't
guys,
surprise me.
on the hack, as far as you know, they were all signed Sandman, right? Because when I
Mhm.
had the opportunity to buy, and this was a long time ago, for 150, I think I recall it saying hardcore hack, but I didn't
No,
keep the picture.
I believe
I've definitely
it'll say
seen one saying
hardcore hack.
hardcore hack, 100%.
But it'll
What's
say
that?
hardcore hack and then Sandman on top of it, I think. I think you probably Sandman on top of it as well.
I
I've
don't
got one that
recall-
says hack and in black and then Sandman in red.
So that's
Yeah,
what I
you
think.
see, like, I don't recall
But
seeing
I have seen
Sandman on the
hardcore
one.
hack.
You've never seen hardcore hack?
No, I have 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I recall. That's what I recall.
Yeah.
But in recent discussions of them, it seems like the ones, like the one you got, Jamie, and the ones that have been talked about recently, I'll say Sandman. So they might be ones that has kicking around, and that's how he signs it as. But I recall, and I kicked myself for not taking a picture at the time. Well, I kicked myself bigger for not buying it, but I recall it saying hardcore hack, but I've never been able to prove it. It's just a memory I have in it.
I might have a photo of one saying hardcore hack. I might have a photo one.
Oh,
I've just got
awesome.
to check the PC
So
because I used to, like I said, I used to do screen
I'm
grabs
not
and all
losing my
that.
mind. That's what I thought, because I thought, oh, these are all coming Sandman, but I'm pretty sure that when I turned down the one, it said hardcore hack on it. because I was
Yeah.
sent a picture of it, but that was a billion computers ago, and God knows what happened to that picture and what have you. So
Well, you're not going crazy because there's definitely a hardcore hack autograph like
good.
that way. Yeah.
So guys,
100%.
let's get into the meat of this discussion. Something that's come up over the last few weeks.
Well, no, we didn't. We never got Frankie's interpretation. Do you consider 111 or 113 or what's your official
Are
number?
you okay with that official 111 with the two variants, or do you think the variants Frankie should be in count?
So it'll be 113 with the two variants. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that because
So we're on
my
the same
first
page
count, I
then.
missed one somewhere. So like, I've got it written here, 113. So that's what I've got.
All right, good. Because I've heard different totals. I'm thinking, okay, I've got four of us here that live and breathe this stuff, and we know. And if there's any variants out there, I'd like to see them. And certainly, if there's any other cards like a Steve McMichael or like a Mike Enos that we've never heard of, we'd like to know about that as well. And Jamie's got a list of a bunch of people, kind of a fantasy thing that could have been decided at the time. But we're going to get into now. And Tony's already started.
Couple names on that list, by the way, too. I think I'm going to chime in on when you read that off, Jamie.
Okay.
Let's talk about the authenticity of the signatures, because that's come up very recently.
Oh, fuck. Here we go.
Well, let me start. I have never bought. I don't buy cards that have been signed by somebody supposedly, unless I can be sure. That's why the bulk of my autograph collection is certified by the manufacturer on the back of the card. Now, I know that if you buy a slab card and it's PSA signature authenticated, you can feel pretty good. But, as recently as the last time Tony and I did this, someone produced a Bruiser Brody card that was a Wrestling All-Star that we're not so sure was signed by Bruiser or not. And that's always a question. And then it begs the larger question that, do these guys actually sign their cards? And we know of Lita's in the Fleer series that didn't get signed. We've heard stories of Sable. And it's not unreasonable to pose the question. However, it's come up that not a preponderance, but not just a couple of guys might have signed, but a lot of guys in this series might not have signed. And that's where Tony and I, well, wait a second here. That doesn't make sense to us, and it is, when we show four different variants of a Hogan signature, it's difficult to make a case that these were all signed by the same guy, other than Hulk Hogan remembering that he did it, or, taking a picture like we've seen Booker T actually signing. So there's your proof. But Frank, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on the authenticity of the signatures on this set?
I think they're all legit. Even when they talk about the Hulk Hogan ones, like I've heard all the stories. Jimmy Hart signed them, his wife signed them, Horace signed them. I've heard all the stories over the years. But if you look at the signatures, like I think they said the wood, the variant wood.
Yeah. Jamie,
like I've got his autographs on a figure, Hollywood Hogan, and the wood is identical to the wood on the card. I don't think there's any. It's definitely look. I think it's definitely Hulk Hogan's autograph, front and back. Like I've heard stories that he was signing him halfway, and then he realized he did it wrong, and it signed the other side. I don't know. To me, they all look legit. And then I think it was like a month ago. They were talking about the Lex Luger one being fake. Oh, like honestly, that one annoyed me because I've seen so many different Lex Luger autographs on cards and on promos and on magazines. And I actually went and found some that he signed the total package.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On the inscription. So look, I don't know. I think they're all legit, and that's not just me being a WCW Topps auto fan, but yeah, look, they're real to me.
Yeah, same. Like there might be when people say that they weren't all signed, it's a very, very small percentage. It's not like 5 or 6 guys. It might be one guy. It might be some of his cards, but it's infinitesimal, to suggest that this is a commonality amongst the set. Like it just doesn't wash with me. Jamie?
Some people too, when they use the argument of the auto, I mean, guys' autos can change over the years. Now I'm a big Sting guy. If you look at his autograph from 25 years ago to today, there's differences. If you look at Lex Luger's autograph from 25 years ago to today, there's differences. Like Hulk Hogan, same thing. Like it will change a little bit, and then as far as that argument goes, we were producing identical like autographs to these supposed fakes, and people were saying, "Oh, those definitely look different." I mean, you're you're basically arguing for the sake of arguing.
Mhm.
And again, the argument when you say, "Oh, I asked Buff Bagwell," right to his face. Look, no disrespect to Buff Bagwell or Lex Luger or whoever, but you really think these guys give a flying F about a stack of Topps cards they signed 25 years ago? I had a private DM with Matt Cardona. Now we all know who that is. He told me right out, I love Big Kev, but he's not going to give a fuck about signing cards from 25 years ago. If he told this guy a story about how he still had the box at his house, he's telling him a story. He's like trolling him or whatever. It's that these guys don't care. They sign so many things. If they say, "Oh, I don't have any recollection of signing that," I'm sure there's things they did back then worse than, like, bad things that they have no recollection of. They could have kids running around today in that they have no recollection of consummating.
One
You know what I
thing,
mean?
That's
So
the
it's
first
just a
thing.
stupid argument. It's
one
just
thing
people.
I have a lot of just by hook or crook is Kevin Nash autographs. I have 12 of them, including one done by WTC. So I took them all. I looked at all of them and I A-B'd them, and fully half of them bared very close resemblance to the original, and that would have been the first one, the WCW. So that's one that got my back up, and I said, well, this is an easy one because I know someone that can straighten this out for us real quick. And I said,
Also, so is that why Kevin Nash replied on Twitter? Is because
Correct.
Tony reached out to him?
correct. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. No, this is all Tony's doing, because as soon as it came up, I'm like, all right, I can't speak to Bagwell or Total Package, but if Kevin Nash has a box in his house, right, then Tony's going to find out, because Tony's going to say, hey, what about this box in your house? And he responded, and that pretty much put that to bed, I think. But
yeah,
it's
and it was
fun.
almost immediately too. Like it was good that it just went bang. Yep, that one's over.
Yeah, well,
Next.
you would think it did. It got responded to pretty quickly, but the conversation continued beyond that because the deniability of that post just kept going. And so I commented on that additionally by saying, like, this is a closed case. Let's move on to the next conspiracy theory, please, because this one's over. It's done. But there's just people out there. There's certain people out there, and like anybody else in business, they just want to protect their investments. And anytime something that might fringe upon their potential investment as like, well, that's not the best property to own. This is the best property here to own. Also, it's like, no. I mean, I get that there's that level, but there's no need for it. And it really sort of starts to piss me off when people start like questioning, even when the direct source says, sorry guys, this is mine. I did this, 100% my signature. And you still want to continue on the conversation, dude. Now, like Jamie said, you're just arguing just to argue because you must be having a slow day that day. I don't know what the hell it is, but that bothers me.
I've got no issue with if someone was told that story and sharing it with other collectors just to share the story. Well, this was so told me this, blah blah blah. But once Kevin Nash came out and said, no, that is my autograph, then it's case closed for me. You know what I mean? I've got no problem hearing a theory or hearing a story, because I'm into the set. I collect cards. I'd like to hear these stories. But once, like you said, it was put to bed, case closed, move on,
And the counter argument here is like, when you go to stuff like, again, we're only comparing it because the Wrestling All-Stars, that's a very popular thing out there, that people are getting autographed. Even that has its, controversies and like, was this really signed? Like we already talked about earlier, Bruiser Brody. And there's others out there, I'm sure, that people go, what was the other one that get called out? Like, it's not even signed by him, signed by his brother,
grappler or something.
Grappler, yeah. I mean, I mean, there's controversies no matter what. I mean, I totally get it, but at some point when someone comes into and shuts it down saying, stop it, guys, this is mine, move on. Let's go move on to the next ones like that. Let's move on.
What I don't want to see is someone, we're at a very high level of collecting, the four of us, but you got guys that are sort of casual collectors. And when I see people saying, oh, thanks for letting me know, I'll stay away from these now.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a fucking minute.
That was my argument is some people
100%
saying these things. Some people saying these things are the leaders in the hobby, and they're the first person that people go to for advice on cards. whether it be this or 85 Topps or the All-Stars, whatever. And if certain people are saying that these are fake autographs, then it's gonna, one person tells another person, two tell
Yeah.
four, 4 to 8, and so on and so on.
That's how it goes.
And it's all false. It's all false narratives based on second and third hand bullshit. That's all it is.
And again, like I said, probably just being trolling too as well. So I mean, listen, there's no secret that I have a good standing relationship with Kevin over the years, and having all that time, you know, many dinners and drinks over the years. You know, he likes to tell stories. He's a great storyteller. And you know, sometimes he likes to, you know, fabricate a little bit, I bet. Like everybody else, you know, there's no difference.
Shits and giggles.
Shits and giggles, you know.
Yeah, because none of us, with the guy that came up with the story originally, that this was what I was told by Kevin Nash, none of us thought he was lying. We believed that he was relating a story that he was told, but then the whole thing mushroomed because, again, someone else got hold of it and turned it into a thing, you know.
But this one instance just opens the door for like, well, what about the Luger one? What about this one? What about that one? Next thing you know, you're discrediting the entire damn release like it's all bogus. Like, well, there's, you know, half of the damn roster now is like all bogus stuffs like that because we couldn't get him to sign. So Jimmy Hart signed half of them, or Charles Robinson signed half of them, or such and such,
And
whoever.
Those guys deserve like $1 million because then they matched every guy's autograph to a T.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because the penmanship on Hogan's and Nash's and Luger, Scotty frickin' Riggs, like, are we really going to forge his autograph? Come on now.
Well, here,
Just,
come on.
it's
Oh, I haven't even heard of that one. Scotty Riggs.
His name when
Yeah.
the whole Buff and Luger thing came out, his name was also thrown in there.
Oh,
Like,
right.
come on now.
Here's my thinking on Bagwell, and there was talk, well, the B's different. The rest of it looks okay, but the B might be different. He supposedly had in that main event a couple of years earlier, just signed one of the base cards, Marcus Bagwell, and I have that one. And I looked at it and I looked at the B, and yes, the B's different. But what's interesting is that then comes a WCW autograph, and somewhere in that point, he became known as Buff Bagwell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he just signs the card Buff. He doesn't sign it Buff Bagwell. He signs it Buff.
Yeah.
Now, if someone else was doing that for them, why would they decide to omit his last name? And then why would Bagwell himself continue to sign the cards Buff on stuff he was signing for years after? So
I didn't even think about that because I even have, I guess, found it the other day. Nick was over here yesterday, and I found a whole binder full of 8x10s of things I gotten signed over the years, and I do have a Marcus Alexander Bagwell autograph.
Wow,
right, somewhere in there he became Buff. So if someone's gonna all of a sudden take his WCW card and just sign it Buff instead of Buff Bagwell, it's like, hang on a second here, who's making that decision for him? So that doesn't wash with me. And in fact, I do have in one of my Leaf cards, and I just didn't want to keep going on this thing, a complete Marcus Bagwell where the B looks very similar, you know.
Yeah.
So a guy could have a couple of B's in his life. Someone actually showed a picture on Twitter of Marcus Bagwell signing his chest in a cartoon or with a crayon. I'm thinking, yeah, dude probably doesn't remember everything he did every day of the week back then.
Correct. That's always a key thing. Yep.
Anything else, guys, on the authenticity?
I was just going to say about the Buff ones. When I did a little bit, when the Lex Luger thing came out, I wanted to see, I went and found some Lex Luger signed total package on promos, on things like that. I also found ones with Buff, just signed Buff on promos, 8x10s and magazines. But I didn't bother putting it up because I was like, it's just going to go round and round and round. But yeah, I've seen other things that Buff has signed that have been that have been certified by JSA. So.
Yeah. And the problem is because we have this stuff, because the three of us, and we should mention other guys out there like Wes Moore, like Hulkamaniac on Twitter, like this gentleman Lionel, we don't know much about, but claims to have, there's a lot of guys that probably have a good portion of this stuff. The argument goes, well, these guys have these cards, they have a vested interest, so obviously they're going to try and prove that they're right. And it's like, no. Tony and I, for the last 20 years, have done nothing but try and get to the bottom of things. And we'll be the first to admit if something is fake that we thought wasn't. And if we make a mistake, Tony, you made a change yesterday on your Flair heritage after we had that conversation. So we're not above saying we were wrong and fixing things. So for us, it's important. And I saw a couple of tweets right after someone saying, oh, thanks for this information. Good to know that these are fake. I'll stay away from them. And that's the exact opposite of what we want to see happen.
Yeah.
Right?
And with the whole,
I'll
be the first one to say that this set will never be number one in most people's eyes. It's the All-Stars. And I mean, as someone who does not collect All-Stars, I can admit and say that.
Yeah.
So for people who do collect the All-Stars, they have these conspiracy theories on a set that's below them. Just makes no sense to me.
Well,
Just makes
it's a damn close second though, man. It's got a little bit of gold in that medal.
for sure,
There's some
Tony.
gold and some silver in there.
For sure. I'm just saying, like you guys do like your thing, we'll do our thing. It's stupid. Like I said,
Well,
people must get bored.
It's part of the reason what Paul and I do, is that I don't know. I can't speak for Paul. I think I can speak for him. I think it's part of our duty, our responsibility that we have put ourselves in a position in this hobby, especially with such a niche hobby,
Get it right.
to get to the bottom of things, do the research, archive stuff like that, because long after we're gone from this planet, there needs to be documentation of stuff. If we didn't start doing it, who was going to do it? And I think we just did it for I always say I do it for the love of the hobby. It was just a passion project. And it's blown up to what it is now, where it's like we have grading companies that are using our websites to, help validate and authenticate cards that they're legit during the research process. And I got one of my best friends works for PSA, and during his interview, he's like, "Oh, I've done some research for WrestlingTradingCards.com." Like, "Oh, wait, you know Wrestling Trading? Oh, it's my best friend's website." Like, well, we use that website all the time to help, for grading purposes. Like, so I feel like there's a level of responsibility to get out there and make sure the information's correct.
Yeah, I have the All-Stars. I have the, I have it all. So I have no vested interest, like I just want to make sure that the information that's put out there, and even the stuff on Twitter, on social media that we're all talking, like if someone's getting it wrong, we're going to say, hey, you're wrong. So some of the language, like the Rack's roast beef by far is the rarest set. It is not by far the rarest set. It's could be considered one of the rarest sets, but not by far. And that's a whole other discussion. But Jamie, you touched on something strategy, and it's something I want to talk to you because we sat together 6 weeks ago at a table, me, you, and your dad. And
Yeah.
you pulled out your black Savage Prism, and I was like, wow, nice. And then we get back to reality, and you've sold the thing. And I wanted to talk to you about that because you've got a bit of a reputation for snagging, pretty high-end cards like the Hardcore Hack, the kinds of things that people would get and keep in their collection forever, like real showcase pieces, Jamie, that people would give their hind leg for. And yet you get them and you have them for a little bit. Now I know that you're always onto something else that you don't sell. Hey, listen, Drake came to the show with a Undertaker Savage action-packed 2 autographs. And he left without them. And I said, what? And he says, oh, for a Peyton. Now, I don't know the first thing about Peyton, but I know a lot about Drake. So I know that he made a good move there.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk about that, Jamie. Because that goes against a lot of we sort of diehard collectors, that once you get a marquee piece, it goes on the shelf and it never leaves. But
it also goes against some of the conventional thinking of people when for investment pieces who don't agree with how you do what you do.
Right. And I mean, I understand that too, to an extent. But I guess the short answer would be I have a short attention span sometimes. I get pulled in all different directions. So I mentioned, Michael Jordan earlier. I recently dipped the toe back in, maybe the foot back in to, the MJ waters, and it gets expensive. So like owning the Macho Black, now I own the only PSA 10 of his autograph in this set. And then I had a PSA 10 of his rookie card, which is now at Golden Auctions. Cheap plug. Which is ending in a couple weeks. So I'm not sure if I've told you guys or anything, but I'm also trying to build a new house. So selling a few of these key pieces, yes, I am using some of the funds to buy other stuff, but I'm also trying to save some of it too. So I don't think again, my attention span. I don't think I will ever sell the PSA 10 Macho Man from this set, but never say never. But yeah, that's just basically where
money talks.
Yeah, right. And sometimes if I sell a card from this set, I know I can always get it back. Now with a black 1 of 1, obviously I can't. PSA 10, I probably won't ever see one again of his rookie card. But I don't have to have the best of everything that I'm collecting. But like I said, if I want to get a few high-end MJ cards, I'm gonna have to sell a few of these. So
Hey,
You
dude,
know, that's kind
I
of where
know
my thought process.
I know what you paid for the hardcore hack, and I know what you sold it for. So you're doing something right.
Well, with that one, yeah, that was one of my
Yeah.
better choices.
Yeah,
So
you know,
for
but
sure.
if you're doing that a couple of times a month, then you'll have yourself a pretty grand house before too long.
Right, yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, so that's
Frankie,
just, you know,
well, I want to
my
ask Frankie then, because I mean, you deal in a lot of like you'll buy raw, you'll self sub, or you buy graded too. And you, Frankie, do you grade anything at all, or is your collection graded, or are you strictly a raw collector on these WTW cards?
My I bought a lot graded like that from the WCW autos, but I've also self-subbed a lot as well. So right now I'd say I'm about probably 60% of my set is graded 9 and above.
Okay, I was
from
gonna
the
ask
WCW
you.
set.
Are you constantly like, are you leveling up with your cards? Like you find a better one, you're like, okay, I'm getting rid of this one, but I'm gonna.
I just recently, haven't got it in hands yet, but that only happened a couple of days ago. BGS 9.5 of Savage.
I saw that sold.
Oh, you saw it?
I saw that sold. Yeah.
Yeah, I kept it hush hush. Well, you know, until it's in hand. But yeah, that's heading over to Frankie's collection. So I'm really happy with that one because that Macho I didn't have graded. So I'm more of a I was a Beckett boy. Like I was getting all my stuff in Beckett. I'm not going to get into the whole Beckett versus PSA stuff. But yeah, I've got most of my stuff is in Beckett slabs, but I have some WCW ones in PSA also. But yeah, what I wanted to say to you, Jamie, you don't have to answer what you do with your collection. If you want to be a flipper, you can be a flipper. Like
correct.
You shouldn't have to answer it. It's your collection. It's your cards. You paid for it. If you want to sell it, you should sell it.
Right.
I agree with that, but there's some people out there.
You get what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't have
to
to answer to anyone if someone's saying, "Oh, why are you flipping it?" or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's some people that just are obsessed with everything that I, do apparently. So, and will passively aggressively say things on.
You know, I'm a hoarder, so
I'm gonna start booking you for conventions, Mr.
Palmer.
Yeah. Hey, if they're not talking about you, then I guess you're not important. So it's when they stop. It's when they stop talking about you.
Look, everyone has their collection. I don't think you should have to answer to what you do with your collection. It's your collection.
Yeah, I mean, we've had many conversations over various podcasts, especially when Paul and I doing our 3 count, formerly known as monthly recaps, where I always say that who gives a shit what I'm doing with my wallet? You don't tell me how I spend my wallet. It's my wallet. If I underpay and I got a great deal, thank you. That's cool. But if I overpay, what do you care if I overpaid? Because I always say, like, do you love that card you just overpaid for? Well, yeah, then you didn't really overpay because you love that card. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
It's my money,
100%.
my card.
100%. I agree with you. No, yeah, 100%, Tony.
The old saying is, don't be afraid to be the comp.
No,
that's so.
Frank, I see you got some figures there on your shelf. Are you into Marvel, or we didn't ask you earlier? Are you predominantly wrestling, or are you into other things as well?
It's mostly wrestling cards. Oh yeah, I like my Marvel, but this is just for display on the desk. You see?
No, it's more just display. There's
sports stuff as well.
I can see there, and on the other shelf, like you're a collector.
There's Deadpool, there's Magneto right there, there's Hulk.
Yeah, and there's a sign. You guys call soccer ball by. My background's Greek, and that's they won the Euro Cup in 2004. So that's football. The whole team.
Well, football. I live in a part of town in Toronto called Greek Town. So you can only imagine back then what it was like. I remember it was in Portugal, but Greek beat the host Portugal nation to win that Euro. And
that's exactly right.
Because everyone went apeshit crazy running in the streets naked in Greek Town here when the Greeks won that Euro that year. It was insane.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have won it. But you did. So congratulations.
Yeah. So my stuff is wrestling. I've got like 60% graded set of the Hasbros.
Oh, nice.
You know the Hasbro's figures? Yeah. And then I've got maybe 30 graded pieces of the LJNs.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, but they take up too much room. So I know what you were saying earlier about collecting figures, and that's why I've just stuck to cards these last 10 years, really got into my wrestling cards.
Mine's all in a storage unit, so all my figures right now are just in tins collecting dust right now. So
you gotta clear out that storage unit,
I'm the same, mate.
Gotta clear it out.
I got to clear it out. I know.
When I opened the store, and took possession in November last year, but grand opening in January this year. This was the first time that I did not have a storage unit since 2005.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
And so I'm like, I guess I'm paying more for a storage unit here, I guess now, but at least I have it like, I
That
can
is your
take it out and
storage
sell it. This is my storage unit.
Yeah.
And the way I'm
I
going
have
is
no
probably my
idea how many
house
cards he
too.
has back there. When I went to Arizona earlier this year, like I have 35,000 wrestling cards upstairs. So I know what a lot of wrestling cards look like. And Tony's got more than that, obviously doubles and shit like that. But he's got a shit ton of inventory there. And he's
Yeah,
getting
all the stuff
time.
it's all got labeled by Nick's been sorting for me. Usually
You'll
once
say,
or
oh, I
twice
just
a
picked
week.
up like 4,000 cards for like $300. Where do you get 4,000 cards? But he's finding this stuff. And
A guy came in today, dropped off 1,000 cards that I don't collect wrestling and just gave it.
I don't collect wrestling.
yeah,
And I'm like,
Nick's
well,
got
what
a
do you do
job
with
for
all this
life
stuff?
there, just sorting, and
Yeah.
I've been
It'd be
putting
hard to
that stuff
sort all
on.
that stuff though.
It is. It's all
that'll be-
sorted. It already is. I was
Oh, it's already sorted.
It's already sorted. So
Oh,
now when I
that's
get
good.
when I get a little 1,000 card lot, it's just already separated. I got it today. He already had it all put away. It's already organized, put away. Everything is here is in numerical order by year, by release.
Wow.
So I don't go, someone go, oh, what do you have for Alexa Bliss? And I go, well, can you be more specific? Like what set are you looking at? It's like that. It's done this way. So I had brought in the box out one time for someone. They said, well, let me start off with your 85 through 91, 5,000 count box. And I let him go through it and he starts going through my stuff. And I'm like, my OCD's kicking. I'm cringing like, and he's going through it. And he goes, I'll do my best to make sure I put it back. I go, you better fucking put it back the way I had it. So I told Nick, I go, I can't do this. I can't put all this stuff out on the floor. One, there's really no great way to put it out there. Two, I just can't let people go through stuff and screw it all up. I mean, I spent years organizing it. And so Nick came up with a great idea. Him and my wife came up with a great idea about we're gonna just go out and get a new iPad, a big one, and then we're gonna put everything in a database. It's all gonna be in a database, and you can just go in on that iPad and go, okay, what do you got for Hulk Hogan? All the Hulk Hogan stuff shows up, and then it's like, okay, I want this one from that, and then just pull it all up, and I can go pull it for you.
Oh, nice.
And then all of that will be tied into the online store, so that'll be a complete online version of every damn single card in existence up there.
Well, it'll be the biggest.
Are you online yet?
My store is online, but card wise, the only thing I sell online right now are base sets.
Oh, okay.
I haven't. I've been debating how I'm going to get the singles put up there, and Paul came out here in February this year, and just came back and goes, dude, you're sitting on a gold mine back here. You need to get this stuff online right away. I mean,
work, but like there's
work.
Not a ton of places to go online and buy wrestling cards, so. And you'd have.
I mean, he came in and he found some stuff like he's like, I've never seen this before. And I go, well, you can take it. Go ahead and have it. I don't give a shit. Just take it.
Well, I brought a lot of stuff with me.
You did. Yeah.
It was barter.
But and all that stuff got merged in inventory. It's all organized and merged in inventory. So it's a lot of work, but we're getting off topic here. So
yeah. Anyways, guys, before we wrap it up, the last thing we normally do on this is we ask for one or two sort of stories from the field. So maybe Jamie, we'll start with you. A couple of, in all the years you've been hanging around wrestling cards, give us something.
I want to specifically about WCW. Like, what's been the craziest acquisition for you for WCW?
Yeah, let's keep it within the.
I'd probably say that Sandman card. The kid, it was in the Major Pod group. Again, Matt Cardona's Major Pod group on Facebook, and cards were kicking up. And this kid named Tyler, and I don't recall his last name. But he said, "Hey, I don't collect wrestling cards. I know," and I had been collecting this set and randomly posting one on there. He said, I have this like hack card. And I said, okay, what do you want for it? Because full transparency, like I knew the card was worth more than what I paid, but I wasn't about to tell him like, hey, this card's worth $2,000. So he said, I'd like to get $250, Paul? Is that what I bought it for?
Yeah.
$250. I said sold. But obviously when you
offered it to me to sell for $5,000 like a month later.
Yeah, I was trying to flip it. Right. I was trying to flip it. But yeah, $250, and then obviously I'm like sweating it until it actually like gets to me. But yeah, I mean, he sold it to me $250, and then I listed it on eBay maybe 6 months later, and it sold for like $2,300 or something.
Just over $2,000.
So
it's a little
pretty
bit of
good
a
investment
ROI.
there. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. And the only thing I was gonna say was I do have a list of guys that were supposed to be in this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
through that.
Yeah,
That's great.
just real quick, I just went through. And a few of these guys were like key parts in the company back then. Because if you have guys like, Lodi and Shivani and, Scotty Riggs signing these cards, there's a few guys on here that you scratch your head and are like,
Tough
where's their
Tom.
card? Right.
Yeah.
Like, where's
Eric
their
Bischoff.
card? Right. So he's on this list. Brian Knobs, Jerry Saggs, Robert Parker, Big Bubba, Deborah McMichael, JJ Dillon, Rick Rude. That would have been, awesome.
been
Rick
awesome.
Martel. If Booker T's got a card, then Stevie's got to have a card. You know what I mean?
Right,
That's
there isn't a Stevie
pretty
card.
obvious there.
Correct. Yeah. Never thought of
DiBiase, excuse me, Woman, Dusty Rhodes, Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge, Barry Darso, Barry Windham, because I know Kendall's got a card in this set, and then Bobby Dunkam's got a card in this set. Piper, that seems pretty obvious.
Heard of that one.
Yep.
Vampiro, Dustin Rhodes, Paul Orndorff.
I'll jump in on the Vampiro in a minute.
On the Vampiro, Psycho Sid, and then obviously Warrior, which I gotta say, there has to be a Warrior card out there. Being the businessman that he is, and I told you guys this, it was no doubt in my mind. He says, there's no way I'm signing these cards and they're going to sell my name and I'm not going to get anything off of it. Like, I guarantee there's got to be a stack of cards that he had that he said, screw it. And he just, chucked them. It's got to be.
He wasn't there for too long, man.
Bischoff and Ted Turner.
Well, yeah, Ted. So I didn't have Ted on there, but yeah. And like Bischoff, I mean, come on. He had to have had
like a Ted Turner. Like, my goodness, can you imagine? Like, Vince didn't sign a lot over years.
Right. Ted Turner would have
Imagine if
been, oh
Ted
my God,
Turner
amazing.
signed one of those. What would that be?
Right. Yeah. So there's
Now,
about 20.
that's a name. Ted Turner's a name that has come up over the years as just like, it's almost like a fantasy booking type of thing. Like, I personally would be, I don't believe that would ever, there's no Ted Turner. Like that to me would be like, that to me would be like the one on the list. Like, that's the most unbelievable one.
Right.
I would not have.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
Imagine if Trump would have signed a WWE card somewhere along the way. He's in their Hall of Fame. He could have easily. They got Refrigerator Perry. They got Pete Rose. They got they got all sorts of people assigned. So
just have him sign a sticker sheet or something or
something
like whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then going back to the Vampiro one. So I first heard about Vampiro possibly signing. This was back when I was still had a booth at Frank & Sons, and I left Frank & Sons in early 2007. So I was hearing about Vampiro possibly having an autograph card even back then in the early 2000s, and it's never come up. Now about 2018-ish, because we hadn't left Scottsdale yet. I had a friend of mine from American Icon Autographs put me in contact with Vampiro looking for representation. So I had an opportunity to talk to him on the phone. And for whatever reason, I thought about that card for some reason. Like, is there like, and I flat out asked him, zero recollection of there ever being, never, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah.
Shocker, right?
Yeah. Yeah, shocker. So not to say it doesn't exist, just to say that he doesn't recall.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had something over the phone, if I had FaceTimed him, which I didn't have FaceTime, I could have like shown him like something like this. Do you have something like looks like this? You ever seen one like that? And I plan to do it someday. I mean, I got his number. I mean, I might as well just follow up on it someday. But
like I said, there's a few guys on here like Dusty and like Piper, big parts of that company.
Yeah.
It shocks me that they would not have a card in this set.
Those should be like no brainers. They
Rick
really
Rude would be awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Rick Rude fan, I would love it.
Right.
That'd be awesome.
He didn't sign anything.
Now
we have a cut autograph from Rude, but he never signed anything anywhere. Rick Rude.
Mm-hmm.
So what this leads to now is because we live in 2023 now, we have so many people out there who make custom cards, and now we've started seeing a lot of these where I've seen them on social media, and I've seen custom cards that new collectors will be confused. It's like, is this part of that set that I saw Sting sign and Hulk Hogan sign? Like,
well, Gary stuff, Joypad stuff. He's
got a lot of it out there. There's that.
He's done a good job.
They look good too.
They look amazing.
If you don't know any better and you look at Gary's cards, now he's the first guy to tell you that these are custom and He's not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, but
a couple of
some
years
are
ago, I
good, and
found
I'm
some up
probably
there
going to
like,
get a few just to put in a sheet behind my WCW of a few names that would
sure.
be nice, you know.
Yeah, but a couple of years ago, I saw on someone's Facebook, and I'm not gonna, out them or anything, but I saw on someone's Facebook like, oh, I got this dual sign Hall and Nash ones like that. Like,
I saw that.
it's not,
Yeah.
it's not a legit,
Yeah.
not a legit one, man. Come on. So it
Real
confuses people, so-
signatures, but not
Yeah.
a real card.
Now,
Frank,
now
Frank,
we
you
are
got something
starting to
for us?
see. We can rewind a little bit also as well too. I got a shit ton of talk about WCW, but we can read back. We've been seeing bogus cards that are trying to be passed off as legit WCW cards now, which has happened in other sports and other sets too. So we're seeing Sting has a card that's clearly not a real WCW autograph card, even though it bears a Topps logo in the back and the
Well,
copyright
and
autograph.
it's Surfer Sting and not the Crow Sting.
No, not even that. We have Crow Sting ones that are showing up
Oh,
like that
okay.
as well, that are
Okay.
Yeah.
clearly signed in a new Sharpie today, as opposed to something that was from way back when.
Okay.
We've seen
Gotcha.
Bret Hart ones like that too.
I had you
Um,
right.
Yeah,
Scott
but is
Hall
that
ones I've
because
seen
some of
too.
the orders have faded and they've just re-signed them? That's what sometimes I think is maybe it's just faded, that the order has faded and they've just had it re-signed.
That's a possibility. Maybe it's a possibility. I don't know. But some people are doing color matching, like this has got too much blue on it, pairs of this one, and da. So those are keener eyes than mine. I couldn't tell you. Like, I got to be very careful when something
But
comes
some
to my
look
door.
pretty
Yeah,
dodgy.
Jamie and I have got pretty keen eyes for this set. You know,
Yeah.
I've been
You can tell a new
I've been
auto
playing with
from
these
one that's
cards
been
for like
signed
20
back then.
years. So
Mhm.
I could tell it's the back. I'd be able to look at the back right away and
I
fairly
would
quickly
be
determine if it's real or not.
from before we get to Frankie here stories real quick, for Jamie's list, I would be the first person in line, man, to be like, this is so cool that a Bischoff card exists.
Yeah.
A Dusty Rhodes card exists, a Piper. I don't even care. Even some of the names I don't even remember that you even read off.
Mark Jindrak.
Yeah, like
Right.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
great.
Just to
That'd
have
be
them, you
awesome.
know?
Just to have them.
Yeah.
Mike
Mike
don't
Mike
think- I
Enos
don't-
has a card.
Yeah,
Mike
and I don't
Enos
think.
has a
Yeah,
card.
I was gonna
But
say.
that's
I
part
don't
of the
think I
allure of
pop for
this
Mike
set, that
Enos
there's
more than his
111
card.
of them. Like there's so
Right.
many of them. That's what makes them so cool. You know, some people say I don't like the artwork or whatever. It's like there's 111. And if you
Yeah.
look at that roster, you know, the top names,
It could have been 130. you
Yeah.
know?
yeah, and some of those names are like big names. And like you said earlier, Frank, these guys aren't with us anymore, so that gives them more value.
Yeah.
But that's what the allure of this set is like it's a phenomenal over 3 different releases that they kept it going.
Yeah.
And they produced
And,
these.
and 95% of the people that signed it was their first autograph.
Correct.
Yep.
Right.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Which makes
Correct.
it, that's why I fell in love with it. It's like everyone's first autograph. You
And
know?
a couple
card,
of them,
too.
a couple of them being their only autograph.
Yeah, we don't have a
Yes,
lot of
yes.
machos or Elizabeths, and you know, there's just not a lot of them kicking around. So that's why this is a set that, you know, it's going to be timeless. I think it's always going to be in high demand. And it was,
hmm
you know, Frankie, you're going to give us your story, but it's just nice to talk about this stuff with 3 other guys that know this stuff inside out. You know what I mean?
hmm
I've
What do you
a
got?
good
What do you got? What do you got,
story.
Frankie? I want to hear your
It's
crazy acquisition.
it's a quick story, but it was like almost like a revenge story. So I used to be on the forums trying to pick up some of the bigger cards like Rey Mysterio, Hulk Hogan. And there was this one guy that he was a scammer. So one time he put up that he had Rey Mysterio. It was a great price. I paid the man, never got the card. Cut a long story short, I was refunded by PayPal after a few weeks, whatever. He did it to me again, maybe 6 months later for another lot of cards, another lot of WCW cards. So I remembered his name and he got banned from, it was sports card forums. So this was years ago. So anyway, in 2016, I was on a Facebook group and someone had a Booker T auto and a Mr. Perfect auto. He had the Booker T for $30. And the Mr.
Add a
Perfect
few more
for
zeros.
100.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 100. And next to the Booker T, it had sold. And I went, I can't believe this. I missed out by 40 minutes that someone's bought a Booker T card for 30 US. So I messaged the seller asking, do you have any more? And he said, no, it's the only one I had. I pack pulled it. And I said, look, I know this is morally incorrect. He goes, but I said, if you haven't sent it out yet, I'll give you an offer. And he goes, all right, what is it? And I offered him 500 US. And straight away he said, I'll get back to you right away. And Yeah, we made the deal. And I ended up picking up for, I think, $550. So I added it to get it shipped to Australia. So I ended up getting it for $550 US. And then when I went and looked back at the comments on the Facebook group, the guy that scammed me was the one that bought it for 30 US.
Ah, dude,
Nice.
it's a perfect karma story.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
No, Frank,
awesome.
you said the guy said it was
Yeah,
packed
so I'm not
full.
going to mention his name, but it was the actual guy. When we found out the scammer's name, it was the same guy. And I looked at his profile and it was the same guy. And I was like, this is sweet revenge.
Nice.
So
Mhm.
that's how I
mentioned-
ended up with my Booker T.
You mentioned the seller said it was pack pulled. Now we know that that wasn't the case.
No.
Yeah, well, look, he swears that it was pack pulled. I'm like, yeah, he says he only pulled 2 cards that he bought, and it was the Booker T and Mr. Perfect. So I said to him, like, I didn't care, I just wanted the card, but I just remember saying to him, are you sure that you pack pulled this card? Because it was never inserted. And he goes, I'm positive I pack pulled it. So
Yeah, the
Well,
guy.
the only thing
the guy
else-
that-
just
the guy that
the
sold
only
it
one
was
that got
Marcus
pack pulled.
Bagwell. My Marcus Bagwell from Main Event. The guy I bought it from swears that he pulled it from the pack. And Tony and I, it's the thing for us is that we want to try and verify it, because we've never seen it happen. But this guy's no reason to lie, like, why would he make something up? I bought the card and there it sits. But he claims that, yeah, he pulled it out of a pack.
Unless
think
Booker
they-
only
I
signed like a handful, and then he sent back a handful.
Clearly,
Right.
he signed
Who
one.
knows?
Because
Who knows?
the autograph on that card is like older too. Like you can tell
It actually looks like the ink that was used.
that everybody used.
Yeah.
It looks like
Yeah,
the same ink
yeah.
that everybody used.
Because I've seen a lot in black, and I've seen a lot with he has an inscription on it. What was his inscription?
Harlem Heat.
No, not Harlem
Ra-
Heat.
Raising the roof.
Pump the roof. Oh,
Oh,
Jesus.
raise the roof. Okay.
Raise the roof.
Raise the roof.
Right.
Yeah. So I've seen ones with raise the roof on it, but they were always in black. Yeah. But yeah, that's my story, and that's probably one of the better ones. Like
That's
I
it,
also
that,
got
yeah.
hacked
Oh,
for
dude,
a
I love
price
that.
too, but that's another
Love that.
story.
Love it.
All right, guys.
So I've got to
Well,
ask you boys, out of the whole set, do you guys have a favorite, like a top 2? Like, who's
Macho
your
Man,
favorite
hands
from the
down.
whole set?
yeah,
Macho
Miss
Man, hands
Elizabeth.
down.
Macho Man.
Macho Man?
I'm gonna say Jamie's Macho Man and followed up by Sting.
Yep,
Sting.
exactly. One A. Yep,
Yeah.
that's my 2.
The last year,
for me,
Frank, I was-
it's Miss Elizabeth. I just
I-
love the penmanship, and
Love
she
it.
was like my first crush.
I gotta
Frank,
say,
we never
probably gonna be my
discussed
top.
this. We've never discussed this, but last year I had a guy in Australia offer me 3,500 for my Hogan. That wasn't you, was it?
No.
Oh, you wouldn't have went that high. This
I've
guy
I've got a handful of Hogans.
Yeah,
but
this guy started
there's-
at 25, and by the time
know
I
of at
didn't
least
sell it, but
2 collectors here.
it was
They've got big
interesting 'cause he
collections.
kept bumping his price, and I said no to 35 at the end of it.
Right.
I was
And
just
was
wondering-
that, what was the inscription? Which Hogan do you have?
I have one that just says Hogan on it, and it's one
Which
of the
I have
ones-
not seen other than yours, Paul. I've not seen
It's
that.
the only one I've ever seen that just says Hogan.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
why I
that's a
was
nice
interested. But
one.
I recall that he was from Australia, so I thought, well, you're the big man in Australia for this stuff. Maybe it was you, but we've subsequently.
There's a couple of us. There's a couple of us that have this set. Yeah.
Maybe it was Lionel. You never know.
Yeah,
Maybe
you
it
know
was
what,
from
guys?
Lionel.
I maintain there's more because back in the day, going way back, there was a guy in Toronto, a dude named Wayne Simmons, and I was just getting started in this stuff, and he had a bunch of them. He was well on his way to having like 2/3 of them then back in 2000 when they were just fresh. And I've lost touch with these guys. And he was talking about other guys that were into these. And I don't know the names of these characters, but fast forward, we know about the 3 of us. We know about Lionel, we know about Wes, we know about Hulkamaniac. But there's probably double that again of guys like us that have 90 to 110 or whatever the magic number is. So
Seems like a lot of the guys that do collect this set are more like under the radar. Even like Lionel or like Hulkamaniac, they don't really post a lot about this set on
No.
like online. I just feel there are a lot more guys that do. They just don't really tout about it.
yeah, because for the longest
Yeah.
time I thought I was the first guy to get to the 101.
Mhm.
But then I realized, no, it couldn't have been because this guy Wayne back in the day was well on his way, when I was, when I had maybe half a dozen or something. And he had all the Parkhursts, and he was like, so there was a bunch of guys here in Toronto that were into wrestling. And I don't know what happened to them. And now that subsequently, the hobby's built to this degree, I haven't reconnected with any of them. But I'm of the belief that there's a bunch of us that are well vested in these cards.
Do you guys remember a seller on eBay? I think it was Cape Coral Cards or something. He was in America. He used to have a lot of the, like, he had the DDP Bang inscription.
Oh, did
And
he?
he used to have a lot of the WCW autos for sale, but even back then his prices were pretty high. Like even for me, it was untouchable. I could never get close to his asking prices. But I remember he had a lot of WCW autos, and he was always listing them, and like rare ones too. Like he had Booker T up there for ages. Yeah, Cape Coral Cards. I don't know. I think I'm saying it correctly. But,
yeah, I think I've seen that seller. There's a few up there. There's another guy named like Jack Mavericks who always has stuff up there for sale. There's a few guys too. So, but yeah, I definitely. But yeah, like I said, a lot of these cars, compared to what they were even 2 years ago, a lot of them have even become untouchable. Like,
yeah.
Out of my
And
price
Paul,
range.
you mentioned was it Paul or Tony who mentioned a little bit earlier about the seller that was called Grim?
Yeah,
Grim,
Grim.
yeah.
Is he still around? Like,
We don't think
what
so.
happened to him?
I
We
wrote a
don't
book
think
with him.
so.
The original wrestling card price guide was written by Grim.
Oh, was it really?
Correct. He did all the
Okay.
pricing. Him and I worked on that for several months, just emailing back and forth. I don't think we ever spoke on the phone. Tony spoke to him on the phone.
Hey, that
Yeah.
was my Bible for a very
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah,
I love this book.
that all could come from Grim, because I didn't have any idea of prices, and to get something that would be anywhere close to
Right.
being legitimate, I needed a source like that. And the whole thing came together because a buddy of mine, that I used to be in the record business making CDs and cassettes, and so was this other buddy of mine in Brantford, outside of Toronto, and he'd bought some bookbinding equipment, and he was expanding his service offerings because he was doing a lot of church business, and they needed pamphlets and stuff to go with their audio cassettes. So he got the facility to make books. So the stars just aligned with Grim saying, "Oh, there should be a price guide." My buddy John in Brantford being able to make books, and that's how that project came about. But yeah, that was all Grim, really. I mean, I put it all together, but it was him that come up with the original prices. And given how sort of visible we are now since COVID, and with all these shows and what we've done with WrestlingTradingCards.com and the Wrestling Card Price Guide, and sort of just in general with the National and our card sets, if Grim was out there and connected to a computer, he'd reach out to one of us. And I was close with him. Like, we were very friendly with each other. So I have to
Same.
believe, Frank, that
He told me he had British Bulldog
he might have.
back in the
Might
day.
have.
He might have. He might have. It's entirely
Yeah.
possible. He had the hurricane mask, and I didn't buy it from him, and I should have. But no, he divorced his wife, had a hard time getting at his collection, and then he just disappeared. And I
Well,
believe Frank had no
the
other
divorce
release.
part is correct. That's for sure.
Yeah,
And he
I
had-
remember
he-
that's why
he
he
had
was selling
health-
a lot of his cards.
Right.
He had health issues. He had back surgery he done. So I spent many nights talking to him, sometimes up to 3-4 hours at a time on the phone. Because he would always send his emails to you like all capitals, italicized, and purple
right.
and purple font.
Yes.
And
And in
it
pink,
was always
different colors.
it was the Crowy Y2K
Yeah,
at
Crowy something.
yahoo.com or something like that.
He had that whole goth thing on the go. if you
Yeah.
recall.
And I have all the
Unbelievable.
emails saved. I have all the emails still saved. And he would always reply back to your stuff by breaking your stuff into paragraphs like that, and reply to each one. Like, he was very methodical about how he replied to us like that. And he was the only competition I had selling wrestling cards back then. So we're like, he just randomly asked my phone number, called me up, and like, let's work something out, man. Let's work together, and it's that. And I bought tons of, like, I took all his singles from him. Like, he would deal with more higher end, and I would take all his singles, and I would sell base sets. And I probably had, and I regret it to this day, I probably had 40, 50 complete sets of Royal Rumble, like with all those rookies in it. And I would wholesale them for $7 a piece. A guy down, at Frankenstein. But
he got me and Frank on the Fleer bankruptcy sale, where I was buying a lot of those autographs and a lot of those relic cards for like pennies on the dollar. And
he was part of that. He was part of that. Yeah.
I remember that too.
I bought probably 80% of the stuff that he acquired from that, because I just had a feeling that, this is just too cheap to pass up.
Yeah. I bought a lot of Fleer things from Grim as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the Divas cards and all that. Yeah.
So he
Wow.
last conversation I had with him, another marathon talk. I mean, he was going through some back problems and had to have back surgery. His wife wasn't really in a good place. Neither one were in a good place, apparently. And at the time I last heard from him, he had moved. He moved, and they'd separated and moved. And left a lot of stuff behind. I had to leave a lot of stuff behind. And I think she got a hold of it and either liquidated it all out.
He was a musician as well, so I thought maybe he went to play, but the Price Guide book came out in 2010. By 2012, we went to the online version, and when I was reaching out to Grim to say, hey, this is what we're going to do next, he was gone. And we've never heard or seen, or so I unfortunately have to think the worst on that, because I'm sure he was the kind of guy that if he would have seen what we've done with the initial information that he had back in the day, like he was one of the first guys with Tony, that got this hobby off the ground. So he'd be real happy to see what's become.
He was also but he loved to live in that mysterious things like that. We're going off on this bio on Grim now. And it's just, but that's why I thought, oh, that guy on eBay, it is what it is. I think it's him.
No, it's not him.
I know it's not, but I see his listings
to do that book. We communicated every day for 6 months. Like, I mean, and we became friendly with each other. Like, we were very close.
How old was he, Paul? Was he an older gentleman?
I don't know. I don't
think he's
so.
Probably, he's got to be in our age bracket.
In around, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I thought maybe he was older.
He might have been.
We are older.
Yeah, well, we are.
You're seasoned. You guys are seasoned.
I didn't mean it that way.
Compared to you two guys, we are older.
Yeah, we are. Anyways, guys, we could talk all night. You know, I just wanted to thank you guys again for joining us and sort of chatting about these WCW autographs. Jamie, before I forget, say hi to Leaf for me. It was great.
Absolutely. Yeah, go Leafs.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we go around and give us all your coordinates, Jamie?
Yep. So you can find me on X now. It's so stupid to say. Still, I can't get used to it. It's at Axel_Foley13, and then on Instagram at Axel_Foley13_PC. And thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Nice meeting you, Jamie.
Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, you too, Frank.
Yeah, man. I'm just on Instagram, my wrestling collection, and I think it's the same for Twitter.
Yeah.
But hey, I just want to say a quick thank you, Paul and Tony. Like, honestly, your checklists on your site and your book, honestly, for me, it was the end of all. It was my go-to for anything wrestling for the last decade plus. So
thanks, man.
Thank you, boys, and also thank you for thinking of me to be part of that card set as well. That was awesome.
Our pleasure. It's very nice of you to say. We do appreciate it. You know, Tony and I work hard at this stuff, but we do it like you do because we love it. You know, it's a hobby. We enjoy it. And we always say that this is what, like, I got to hang out with Jamie and his dad, and we had a great time in Chicago. Tony and I, you know, since we've become close doing this stuff, we've become very, very close friends, you know. And that's the benefit of what this is. So, you know, thanks for being a part of everything. And even though you're a little bit far away from us, you know, you're still very much a part of the community. That's why
just a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I'm so glad you're a part of the set, and I'm so glad you're able to join us today finally to join Jamie and myself and talk about three guys that have the entire
it was great.
Almost, you know. Tony,
bring on that British Bulldog. That's all I want.
That's it. Well, Alex has one, you know, and I know what we pay for him. I kind of said, you know, like, if you want to leave me in your will, you know, he's just like 15 minutes away, so it's not that far from here.
I'm sure we can orchestrate a break in. Anyhow, for me, it's everything's at WrestlingTradingCards.com. All of our social media can be found at the bottom of every single page. The site is constantly being updated. I mean, we're going through a Japanese checklist spree right now, so so much stuff going on. Rich Vela has been so instrumental in helping us out with that. I can't wait to get it all done. So and for you, Frankie, if all my cards are played right, I might actually be in your neck of the woods next year. So I'll be bringing a special guest with me.
All right. Sounds good. Make sure it's Sydney.
I got several friends out there in Sydney.
Nice.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, everybody. Thanks to everyone for watching. We appreciate it. Guys, thanks again. Lovely having you on. And I guess that's it. I guess we'll see you guys next time.
Next time.
See ya.
Thanks, boys.